Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the We Are Mission podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Father Dominic Quinn today. Father Dominic, thanks very much for speaking to us.
You're welcome, Jack.
So, Father Dominic, for those who don't know you, can you tell us a wee bit about your background, your family life, schooling, and things like that?
Yeah, sure. I was born in Glasgow, in Byers Road. I won't tell you how many years ago, but the family then moved to East Kilbride in 1965. So essentially grew up here in East Kilbride, and our parish here initially was St Bride's, and we were quite involved in the life of the parish. I was an altar sermon and so on. And then later the family moved to Our Lady of Lourdes parish, so that became my home parish. And as a child, I went to St Kenneth's Primary School here in East Kilbride, and then on to St Bride's High School for secondary education. Then I went to Blair's College in Aberdeen for my fifth and sixth year there, and the bishop at that point asked me if I would like to go to the senior seminary in Rome. So I studied in the Scots College in Rome for 7 years, then was ordained in Our Lady of Lourdes, come back here to work in Motherwell Diocese. So that's pretty much the origins, really, of what I've been doing.
And what were you like at school? Were you someone that was really kind of academically inclined? Did you like different sports? Was there something that you maybe thought about being other than a priest?
Well, believe it or not, at school, certainly at primary school, my ambition was to be a singer. So it was the age of the Bay City Rollers, and I can't believe I'm confessing to this, but I did want to be a singer. I was never particularly good at sports. My brothers, I've got 4 brothers who are all great sportsmen, but I was never good at sports. So I liked singing, I liked performing, and that was my ambition to be a singer. I did enjoy academics, and I liked learning, and that's something that stayed with me through life. But I gave up the idea of being a singer because I thought I didn't have the looks for it. And later in the high school, I was kind of orientated towards becoming a lawyer. That was Plan B. And then the Lord intervened, and Plan C came along, and I kind of felt as if I might be have a call to become a priest. So that's how things turned out, and I'm quite happy with that.
And you said that you were quite involved in your local parish. Was it quite a traditional Catholic family you came from?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So there were 6 of us. My youngest sister came along later. There was a bit of an age gap, but yeah, we grew up as children. Growing up, we were. We were very involved in the life of the church, and we would say the family rosary at home during the week and so on. And my father's brother, he was a missionary priest. He was a Salvatorian, John, and he worked in Tanganyika, as it was at that time. So we did feel very much part of the church, and connected, and our faith was really important to our family, and to myself as well. Growing up, it was so it was alive. It was alive. Faith that was alive in a sense.
And to touch on your vocation, was that family member a catalyst for you deciding to take up your vocation, or was there anybody else who was maybe a major influence, or was there something else it came from?
Well, I think because the family, we had priests in the family. My older brother was also at seminary, and so we had that connection, I think, with the priesthood as a possibility. And but as a teenager, I get involved with charismatic renewal and going along to prayer groups. So I was probably been about maybe 14 or 15 at the time. But that really was a big turning point for me, I think, in terms of considering vocation. And so there had lots of good influences. The priests in our parish, both St Bride's and Our Lady of Lourdes, they were outstanding examples, really, and joyous people. And so I think there was quite a few influences, really, which supported, I think, the feeling that I had that perhaps God might be calling me to be a priest. And also at that time, that would have been kind of mid-70s to late 70s. There was a kind of movement within schools. So it was called the Caring Church Weeks, when various priests and religious would come to visit the school for a week and sharing about their own lives and so on. And they were great salesmen and saleswomen because they were clearly very happy about their own lives and wanted to share that. And they encouraged reflection in young people to inquire of themselves whether it might be a way of life that would be for them. So.
And Father Dominic, obviously in Scotland at that time there was an awful lot of priests who had come over from Ireland to serve the church here. You've got a wee bit of Irish background yourself as well. Can you tell us a wee bit about that?
Yeah, well, I do, and my all four grandparents come from Ireland, County Fermanagh, County Leitrim, and so two of my father's parents, they came to Scotland late 20s, early 30s, and settled in Clydebank, and they were bombed out of Clydebank during the Blitz and rehoused in Partick and Byers Road. So that's why I've got a connection there with Byers Road. And my maternal grandparents, they ran the farm in County Fermanagh, a place called Boho, which is near the town of Derrygonley. The closest big town is Enniskillen. So the family are still there. They still have the farm. That's when my mum would have grown up on the farm there. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of my Irishness, being a Scots Irish.
And obviously, one of the things that Irish immigrants to Scotland brought with them was their faith. But what kind of values do you think? You said your mum had grown up in a farm. What kind of values do you think she instilled in you and your siblings?
Well, that's a really difficult one to answer, Gerard, because my mother gave us so much, really, and I suppose growing up in the farm, she herself came from a family of four, and from our earliest years, the family worked as a team. They had to work as a team in the farm, and facing all the challenges that they would have faced. It was a very simple lifestyle which they lived, but it was all underpinned by their life of faith to an extraordinary degree. It was just woven into everything that they did. So for example, they would stop to say the Angelus at midday, or in the evening at 6. Everyone would, the men in the fields, those who were at home, the children. So growing up in that environment, that their faith was just woven into their humanity. There was no distinction between faith and life. It was one and the same thing. So religion wasn't just something for Sundays, but it was something which influenced everything in life. And so that element of working together, of sharing, of collaborating, of supporting neighbours, sense of solidarity, care for each other, a humility too, which is extraordinary. Extraordinary humility, a great awareness of the equality of individuals. So many. I could write a book probably about it all, but certainly from my mother and from my Irish roots, I think that those things were conveyed to us as children from a very young age. Great sense of fairness, and using your talents for the benefit of others. Those are things which I think remain with me, and I could go on all day about the things that I think I've received from my mother. So yeah.
So, Father, you decided to take up your vocation. A couple of questions there regarding your vocation. Was there anything that surprised you about following a vocation? Maybe you had some preconceived ideas that didn't kind of, work out, sort of thing, or follow the path you thought they would. And also, what does the term vocation mean to you in its broadest sense?
For me, vocation is some kind of sense of being connected with God. We speak about having a personal relationship with God and the importance of that, having a personal relationship with the Lord Jesus. And what is kind of, you ask what surprises me about it is the ongoing nature of it. So it's not, for me, it's not just about hearing a call, which sounds a bit kind of Hollywood, voice from above, dramatic instance, but rather it's a continual awareness or a continual feeling that somehow or other God is drawing you towards a particular lifestyle, and if we're talking about vocation, that God is drawing you continually. So even now, after 37 years of ordination, I still feel the dynamic of vocation, of God calling and guiding and leading and sustaining and walking. So the surprise is, in terms of understanding vocation, it's not just signing on a dotted line and saying, yes, I will do this, but it's actually taking the Lord's hand in some way and walking with Him for a lifetime, and in all the challenges that come up, and the difficulties and the moments of celebration, but feeling the Lord's hand somehow, and also feeling some sense of confirmation from God that you're on the right path in life, and that your life is worthwhile, and but those are elements of how I would understand vocation.
And just to flesh that out a wee bit, is there maybe a saint or a scripture passage that you feel kind of defines your vocation?
In terms of defining the vocation, that's a difficult one, but I do remember, there's lots of scripture things that come to my mind, and for my ordination card, I chose a quote from St. Paul. I can't remember the exact location. I think it was in one of the letters to the Corinthians. But there are three things that last: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. So I hold on to that phrase as something which sort of helps me. But to balance it up without sounding too pious, a quote from one of the Psalms which says, I have not I have not gone after things too great, nor marvels beyond me. And I keep that as a kind of temper and humility to say, well, you do what the Lord wants of you in a particular moment, and a desire to follow the Lord's will, and not to be too consumed by your own plans in life, and to be prepared to alter course at times. And those are the things from Scripture really which help me in understanding vocation. And I'm very fixed on those ideas of faith, hope, and love, because I believe that in baptism, those are seeds which are planted in us, and I have a real awareness of being given those gifts at baptism in a specific way in the sacrament. I know that God gives them to people in different ways, but just that whole importance of baptism in the sacrament, and of receiving these seeds, as it were, in your life of faith, hope, and love, and the challenge being to allow those seeds to grow, and to be able to confront myself and say, well, am I actually growing in those areas? And it's not a question about age, because it's a lifetime's project. So,
In terms of saints, would there be any saints that you have a particular devotion to, or you pray to quite a lot?
well, my patron saint is St. Dominic, so I really value St. Dominic, and I would turn to St. Dominic. Also have a love for St. Francis of Assisi. So Francis and Dominic, you can't get better. Two great saints, and those are my saints. And I mean, there are many others that I would turn to, but those are the great saints. And I do have a special love for Our Blessed Lady, and that's something which has really grown from early years, when I didn't quite understand the importance of Our Lady, even though I would say the Rosary and so on, but something clicked with me. Only we'll be talking about South America soon, but something clicked with me in South America about the place of Our Lady in the life of a Christian, really, and really from that time, my understanding is just grown so much about that. So in an emergency, the first person I call on is Our Blessed Lady. But yeah.
So, Father, can you tell us a wee bit about where your vocation has taken you?
Well, it's taken me into many different situations, but when I was first ordained, I started working in a parish in Coatbridge, St Monica's in Coatbridge, and there it was myself and two other priests in the parish. That was back in 1988. Most of my work then was with young people, so parish youth groups, and I was chaplain in the high school, Columba High School, and also covered the primary school in the parish. And I sort of worked with young people. We had a guitar club and given guitar tuition and so on. And it was really exciting times. I introduced a lot of young people to hill walking, and that was wonderful. At the time, it was a hobby that I had, and I was aware that some young people had never been up in the mountains, and it was a real joy to see how much it meant to them to have that new experience. So yeah, it was five great years in St Monica's, and then dramatic change. The bishop asked me to become chaplain to Shotts Prison. So I went to work in the prison for about 3 years or so. And that was interesting too, a completely different experience, and meeting people that who were residents in the prison who I don't think I would ever have come across in another situation in life. And for a time I was teaching moral theology in the seminary, which was another new experience for me. And eventually it came to the stage in my sort of journey, if you like, of priesthood, where I was what was referred to in the diocese as the head waiter. So that is the person who's next in line to become parish priest. And at that point I thought I would like to do something a bit different. So one of our priests from Motherwell had just returned from missionary work in Peru, Father Paddy Hennessy, and I approached Bishop Devine to see if he would give me his blessing to go and work with the St James Society. So I ended up working in Bolivia initially, in the Altiplano in Bolivia, and then for a time I worked down in Lima as well. So it's after that spell in the mission, which once you work in places like Latin America, or imagine the same for Africa, it kind of gets under your skin. So life is never the same again. And I come back home and began working in the parish here in Motherwell Diocese, and I always had a hankering. I'd remained in touch with the people that I'd met in South America, and I always had a hankering to go back, so that became possible. I went back to work in Ecuador for a short period, and then with kind of changing situation at home, I came back and began working again in Motherwell Diocese. So, and now I find myself in East Kilbride, the town where I grew up in, and it's as if I've come full circle. But I do have a sense of a full life, if you know what I mean. It's I'm not, I suppose I'm not ancient, but at the age I am, I feel that all of those experiences that I've had as a priest, whether it's in parish life or in the jail or in South America, that they give a wisdom. They give a wisdom about understanding people's lives and giving perspective as well about what's going on in folks' lives. So I'm really grateful for having had those experiences, and that's kind of where I am at the moment.
And just before we go on and talk about your time in mission a wee bit more, a kind of prison chaplaincy, how important is that role? Hugely important, really. The people who are in jail, who've committed crimes and in jail, it's a very isolating experience for people, and precarious too, for those who are in prison. And to have someone whom they can trust is a major thing for those who are in prison, and one of the aspects of prison life is suspicion. So people are suspicious of each other. The people who are in jail are suspicious of one another. The prison officers are suspicious of the prisoners, and so on. So that there is a kind of culture of suspicion, and to have figures working in the prison who are trustworthy, and who are there both for those who are in the jail, who are prisoners, but also for the staff, for both of those groups to have a person that they can trust, and the Catholic priest is a unique role. It's different from other chaplains, I think.
because of the connotation of confidentiality and that goes along with the perception of the priest, then the role of the priest in the prison is particularly important. And just at that human level, it's important about a trustworthy person, or someone that you can put your trust in. But also at the level of faith, it's important because, when people are in the prison, there can sometimes be a kind of resurgence of feelings of faith, and it's good to be able to respond to that.
So, Father, a couple of questions here that will kind of mothball into the one. How were you received in the countries in which you served in South America, and what was your overall first impression of life on the missions?
First of all, about the welcome. The welcome was very warm, and people wanted you to feel at home. My initial days in Bolivia were spent in the Language Institute, which was run by the Marian Fathers, and in my class there were about 10 people learning about Bolivian culture and Spanish language, and we all lived with families. So the families, they wanted you to feel part of the family. So for example, they wanted you to consider, in my case, the mother of the household and the father of the house to be your mother and father. So it was a very, very warm welcome. And particularly because I was going to be working in Bolivia, then the people were very keen to teach me about their own culture and way of life, which was so different from what I'd been used to here in Scotland. Their customs, their lifestyle, temperament, the position of faith in the life of the people, also different from what I'd been used to. And in Bolivia in particular, that mixture of the old religion, whereby the religion of the Incas mixed with Christianity in lots of ways, it was really disorientating isn't the right word, but you realise you were in a different cultural world, and lots of small things that struck me. The town that I was living in at the time was Cochabamba, which is a fairly modern city in Bolivia, but still with huge poverty in it, poverty that I'd never witnessed before. Shanty towns, wild dogs running the streets, all sorts of poverty indicators. But I say that probably the biggest thing was this mixture of old religion with new religion, and on top of that, the whole materialist world kind of encroaching. So it was fascinating, and I really, but most of all, I felt welcome there.
And just in terms of your time on the missions, do you have any standout memories or stories that you could share with us?
I can tell you a story, but it's probably against myself and my lack of experience and a lack of understanding of the culture. So one of the standout moments was the parish that I worked in was in the village of Paria, which is about 14,000 feet up. It's in the Andes. It was the first church built in Bolivia by the Spanish conquistadores when they arrived. So 1543, the church was built, And it was a huge, huge building. The walls were maybe at least 15 feet thick, made of adobe, mud and straw and so on. And that church was still standing, so 500 years later it was still there. The Spaniards had intended this to be their capital when they arrived up in that level, but then they discovered gold in another town further up, a couple of miles further up, called Oruro. They discovered gold there, so they abandoned Paria. After having built this huge church, they abandoned Paria. So, in fact, when I was living there were only 12 families living in the village. But we served about 30 villages around in the mountains, which we would reach by jeep along mud tracks, and a lot of these communities also had Spanish colonial churches in them, smaller versions of the church in Paria, and we would travel out to these communities to say mass or do baptisms, maybe twice or 3 times a year, but we would always visit them on the day of their feast day. So whoever the patron saint of their own chapel was, their own church, we would go out to do mass as part of the celebrations of the feast. So the celebrations for the feast would last a week. It wouldn't be just on the saint's day, it would last a week. And somebody would sponsor the feast. So maybe someone from the village who'd made good in the city or something like that, they might pay for the refreshments, a band to come out and play, so on, and the stipend for the priest to say the mass. So at one time I went to this small village, so I drove out with our deacon. He was a married deacon, Bolivian, who lived in the area. So and he knew the roads. He knew how, because there was no road signage. People navigated by, a hill here and there weren't any trees because we were above the tree line. But so we arrived anyway in this wee place, and I went into the chapel, and the village had been partying the night before. So there were all these drunk men literally lying on the altar, on the sanctuary, all over the place, stoned, completely stoned. And I said to them, well, I'm not celebrating mass in this situation, this is unacceptable, and gave them a big lecture. I said, I'm going back to Paria, I'm just not going to celebrate the mass. So myself and the deacon, we drove back. They didn't think I was serious, that I wasn't going to celebrate it. So we drove back to our place. It's probably about an hour and a half's drive away. So back to the house, and I explained to my colleague, Father Dario, what had happened, and he said, well, they wouldn't have expected that reaction from you. So the following day, 3 members of the community arrived, their leader of the community, and his 2 sort of assistants, if you like, counsellors we would probably call them, and they arrived in full ceremonial dress, which, the coloured ponchos that they would only wear in formal occasions. So the 3 of them arrived at our door, and they pleaded with us that I would go and do the mass, because if mass was not celebrated, then it would bring down really a curse, I suppose, upon their community, that things wouldn't go well for them the following year, and they apologised profusely about the drinking and so on. And I went back, of course, and said the mass on it. But I hadn't realised the depth of feeling that they had about having mass celebrated there on the feast day of their saint, and how much it meant to that community. And really, I shouldn't have left. I should have just stayed and taken time and made it a kind of teaching experience, but in my own cultural references, I didn't quite get that. So it was a good lesson, and there was an element of humour to it. But one other thing which I remember quite clearly was going to a community one Sunday to do some baptisms. And again, it would take us at least an hour to get to these wee villages. And arriving at the community, having the baptism, and whenever we went to visit the community, they would always give us lunch, typically roast llama or something like that, and a bit of salad. And we had lunch, and then the head person in the village said, could we ask you to do as a blessing? I said, yeah, what's the issue? He said, well, in that area, lightning strikes were frequent because there was no trees, and because of the atmospherics, the bolts of lightning typically would hit livestock or people or houses. So in this case, lightning had struck and killed a sheep, which was on the hillside. So he said, we would like you to come and bless this spot where the lightning struck. So I said, yeah, that's no problem. So they prayed to St. Michael the Archangel as protection against lightning strikes. So I said, that's no problem. So we all get into the Jeep, and I said, where is it? He said, oh, it's only 5 minutes away. It's 5 minutes became 10 minutes, became 15 minutes. Eventually we arrived at this guy's house, and I said, okay, so where is the spot that you want me to bless? And he pointed to an area halfway up a mountain and said, it's up there. And I said, I couldn't go up there. There's altitude, it's too high for me, and I couldn't really go up there. And he said, we thought you would say that, so we have taken some of the soil from the spot where the lightning struck. And he produced this basket of soil. He said, so if you bless that soil, we'll go up and replace it where the lightning struck, and that'll be us. That's fine. So bless the soil, and I prayed to St. Michael the Archangel. Off a couple of guys went with the soil, and for my labour, for my work, he gave me half a dozen eggs, a couple of carrots, and some onions. That's another. But loads of wee things like that happened. Great.
That was probably just a hill walk too far, eh?
It was a hill walk too far. Yeah.
Father, when you were in Bolivia and Peru, were you involved in any kind of specific projects that the people requested, maybe educational ones or healthcare or things like that?
Yeah, in our area, in the parish that I worked in, we supported agricultural programmes. So the St James priests who had been there before had set up, farmers associations so they would pool their produce and try and get a better price for it. So that would have been the main projects that I was involved in Paria itself. But we supported our colleagues who were working in the city of Oruro. So they ran a clinic and also a feeding centre for children, and we would support them and go along and, with our presence, and that was the projects that we were involved in. There was a kind of orphanage close to us in an area called Obrajes, and occasionally we would drop in there to talk to them, and those were the kind of things that we were involved in. So.
I think earlier on as well you spoke about how your love and appreciation for Our Lady grew when you were in South America. Could you elaborate a wee bit on that?
Yeah, the Latino people, the South Americans they have a huge devotion to Our Lady, huge devotion, and I think it's connected to the cultural value that they place on motherhood in general. So the mother of the family is a hugely influential role. It's a very it's a very male-dominated culture in general terms, but in terms of domestic arrangements, the mother has a huge role to play in the family, and there's huge respect, mothers, grandmothers, and so on. And I think their love of Our Blessed Lady comes from that appreciation of motherhood. So what struck me initially was the public transport. So, you know, you would go on a bus, and the front of the bus would be festooned with statues of Our Lady or tapestries, you know, in the windscreen, and the drivers would have tattoos of Our Lady on their forearms, and, you know, Maria mi Madre, you know, all this kind of thing, and it was widespread. It was widespread. So that got me thinking about where I saw Our Lady in my own life. You know, clearly as a Catholic, I always had a devotion to Our Lady, and but perhaps my devotion was more on the intellectual side than in the emotional side, and through my experience in South America, I think I managed to connect emotionally with Our Blessed Lady as the Mother of Jesus and our Mother too, and not in a kind of pious way. Not there's anything wrong with piety, but it was a real natural feeling that Our Lady wasn't otherworldly, but she was our mother, and like our earthly mothers, that Our Lady cares for us in an active way, and is influential too. You know, influential with the Lord. So all of those things kind of started to kind of move around a wee bit in my own spiritual life, and it was a real blessing,
If we take into account, you know, that missionaries really need to have certain qualities or characteristics to go out on mission, what would you say are the most important of those qualities or characteristics a missionary must have?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I think you're right. I think you require particular qualities that I'd say, first of all, a love of people. I think that's the crucial one, to have a love of people, and an ability to engage with people. I think that's first and foremost. But also, I think adaptability, to be able to adapt to a different culture, and to appreciate a different culture. So, yeah, maybe those are the two outstanding things. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And during your time on mission, you would have had lots of, you know, positive experiences, positive stories, and things like that. What would you say are the positives, and if there are any negatives, about being a missionary priest?
Well, the positive one is the privilege, really, of living in another culture, close to people, and being accepted as part of the group, really, and not as a tourist, but really part of the family, part of the community, because of the distinctive role of the missionary priest. Then people are they in a true sense, you know, open their doors and open their hearts to you. So that is the huge privilege, I think, and the biggest positive thing, because from that, then I think it challenges the missionary's own generosity of heart and openness to others, and you know, for example, in our own parish here in St Leonard's over the last number of years, we've had quite a large influx of people from different countries. Polish people, Latinos, Africans, people from Asia, and I'm pretty relaxed about welcoming other cultures and trying to find ways of allowing their own experiences to come out too, and not to seek to stifle or to make other people conform to my culture. So I think that's something that I've kind of brought back to work here in Scotland from the missions. The negative things are probably physical things, about the challenge of life. For example, in Bolivia, the altitude posed a challenge because it's living at 14,000 feet. It's not for everybody, and having to be careful with that. Also, the infrastructure is physically challenging. So, for example, in Oruro, there were open sewers in the streets, so that the drainage system, so you would have to be careful about, the getting around the place, and also the dangers when you were in a place where people didn't know that you were a priest or a missionary. Then that there could be security issues, personal security. So those are things which would be negatives. But through experience, a person would learn how to manage those risks. But nonetheless, it's a more difficult lifestyle than living here in Scotland, for example.
And the term mission itself, it's one that's used quite rightly a lot within the church, but it's got different definitions, I guess, depending on the individual. What does the term mission mean to you personally?
For me, mission is trying to live out our faith, my faith, in whichever set of circumstances we find ourselves. So, and in that sense, mission applies to every single person. Whether it involves going to, from your own place to another place, or whether it involves living a particular way in your own area, but it's all about going out. So going out of oneself and trying to share something of the insights of faith that you have, the love that you experience from God, to try and share that with others, seeking to encourage and involve others in the life of the church. So for me, it applies as much here in the parish of St Leonard's as it does to those who go, for example, out to Bolivia to work in faith communities there. It's not an optional thing for the Christian. I think that this idea of, particularly of going out of oneself, that's the call. That I think for Christians, when Jesus sends out his 72 to the villages and towns and so on, for me that's a kind of key to how we should live our lives as Christians, going out, finding ways to bring in practical terms our faith or God's love to others, and whether that means trying to create a prayer group, or trying to organise a food bank, or helping at a soup kitchen. All of those things for me are mission. It's the recognition that we have a responsibility to go out of ourselves, not to hold everything in. And it applies to individuals and to communities and to parishes, that it's essential to be going out.
And following on from that, obviously Missio Scotland is going out to Bolivia to support projects there. How important would you say it is that we support projects in Bolivia, and how does it feel that you are, in a sense, the link person with getting these projects up off the ground?
I know that the people in Bolivia are hugely grateful for the solidarity that the other groups show them, and it's not in terms of a superior helping an inferior. They have a real sense of the human family, and from the perspective of the Bolivians that I know, they understand the notion of solidarity, because amongst themselves they show great solidarity and support in the ordinary things of life, but they understand too that the global family must show solidarity. So in Bolivia, there is it's one of the poorest countries in Latin America. So there's huge need in the things that we take so much for granted: healthcare, education, just basic day-to-day living. There's huge need. So any assistance which can be given to those people in Bolivia is really important, and it's important for us too to find ways to show solidarity to Bolivians, but all the people around the world who don't enjoy all of the things that perhaps we take for granted here.
And obviously that's something that Missio Scotland and its partners in the Pontifical Mission Societies try and do throughout the world, have that sense of solidarity, support our brothers and sisters wherever we can. Why do you think it's important for people to then support the work of Missio Scotland and our partners in the Pontifical Mission Societies?
In Bolivia, the church is one of the institutions that people know they can depend on, they can rely on. They have a lively participation in the lives of their own faith communities, and they also have a great understanding of the universality of the Catholic Church. The Pope, whoever the Pope might be in any particular moment, the Pope is a hugely important person for them. They don't feel that he's a distant figure. They understand his role as, creating unity amongst the Catholics throughout the world, and so they depend on the church, but they also contribute to the church as well, not in financial terms, but in terms of the life of faith. So that connection with the Pope, with the universal church, is important for them, but it's also important for us to be part of that effort, because it's one of the great commandments is to love our neighbour as ourselves, to love God, to love our neighbour as ourselves, and through supporting other people, it's an expression of love. Love can be, the notion of loving the other can be a bit nebulous for some, but when we're actually saying, no, I genuinely love these people, love my fellow human being, and I'm able to do something to help them in the challenges that they face in their life. That's so important for us, because it reminds us that we have a responsibility for one another, so those who are close to us, but also those who are distant from us, and we need to, I think we need to remind ourselves of that responsibility. Having groups like Missio, for example, it's a constant reminder to us that we are part of something bigger, that we are asked by the Lord to show care for our neighbour, So yeah, Missio's work is vital, vital.
Father, you spoke there about how the people in Latin America, South America, how they view the Pope. Were they even more excited that the Pope was from their part of the world this time round?
I know that they are hugely proud that a Latino is Pope, and they feel that the Pope understands their situation, which he does, because as Cardinal Archbishop of Buenos Aires, he saw the poverty in Argentina, and Argentina is, in terms of development, is probably more advanced than Bolivia, but yeah, they're proud that one of their own, as they see it, is Pope, and also happy that he understands their living situation.
So, Father, having lived in Bolivia for years, can you give us a wee bit of an insight into the Bolivian people, what sort of things they like to do in their everyday life, a wee bit more about their culture as well?
Yeah, I mean, Bolivia itself is hugely interesting and diverse. So you have the Altiplano, the sort of mountainous area. You have the valley region, and then you have the selva, the rainforest area. So in the mountain, the Altiplano area, you have the city of La Paz, for example. In the valley, you've got the city of Cochabamba. Then in the selva, in the rainforest, you have Santa Cruz, which is, and the people who live in these areas all have different characteristics. So the people in the mountainous part, they tend to be quieter, and to our perception, everything's done very slowly. The people in the valley, they tend to have a more entrepreneurial culture about them, and so business people and so on. And then in the rainforest, the people are they're just full of energy. It's extraordinary. Those are generalisations, but there is such a variety, and even physically they look different. So the people in the Altiplano, they tend to be stockier built, and muscular in general. The people in the other extreme, in the rainforest, they tend to be more slender, and you can identify immediately where somebody comes from, whether it's the Altiplano or the rainforest. But they have common thread is they love a party. The Bolivians love a party. They love to dance. They have loads of traditional dances, which reflect their geographical position. In Oruro, I was really blessed living next to Oruro, because that's the folklore capital of Bolivia, and every year they have a huge carnival which lasts maybe 2 weeks, and people come from all over Bolivia to take part in traditional dances, processions and so on, colourful costumes, different dances. It's remarkable. They love their dancing. They love a party. They also love their football. So that different towns have their football teams, and the football supporters are passionate about their teams. They don't. Bolivia itself is one of the most peaceful countries in Latin America. So they tend not to have crowd trouble at the football games as might happen in other countries. But they are passionate about the teams that they support, and there's great rivalry amongst the cities. So yeah, they're very thoughtful people. And culturally, they have a different concept of time, I think, than we do in this part of the world. So they're much more reflective, and they live very much in the present moment. So in our own culture, we tend to make detailed plans for the future. That doesn't seem to be part of the Bolivian culture. They seem to live much more in the present moment, and they have a huge awareness of the transcendent, if I can use that phrase. They have a huge awareness of the presence of God, spirituality, really. But one example of that is the way they celebrate All Souls Day. So on All Souls Day, typically, first of all, they believe that on All Souls Day that God gives permission for the souls to come to earth. And so they will visit the cemeteries on All Souls Day and have picnics at the grave of their loved one, believing that they are there with them on that day by a divine permission. And they will spend the whole day at the cemetery with a picnic. They will have the favourite food of the deceased at the graveyard. They will pour their favourite drink onto the grave. There are musicians present in the graveyard. They'll pay them to come and play a tune at the graveside of their loved one. And that's only on All Souls Day, but in general they have that sense of another world present among us. Kind of the authors, the Latin American authors, have this device called magical realism, and that's so much part of their culture.
So, Father, we usually end on a wee light-hearted note by asking our interviewees to tell us something about themselves that people might not know.
Well, I'm kind of an open book, Gerard, so I think people know most of my things, and what they might not know, people who I meet, new friends and so on, they might not know that I've climbed 180 Monroes out of the 283. Now I'm not able to climb mountains, but so that's a wee kind of badge of pride that I have of having done the Monroes, and I love the mountains. I love outdoors, so that might be something that people didn't know. I'm no Chris Bonington, but I've done my bit.
Well, that's how you probably fitted in well in Bolivia then, all the mountains round about you. Well, thanks very much for taking so much of your time to speak to us, and God bless you.
Thanks, Gerard. God bless you.
Missio Scotland is the Scottish branch of the Pontifical Mission Societies, the Pope's official charity for overseas mission. To learn more about the work of Missio Scotland, you can visit our website www.missioscotland.com. You can like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Missio Scotland. You can also follow us on Twitter, Missio_Scotland, and on Instagram, Missio Scotland. If you would like to donate to Missio Scotland, visit www.missioscotland.com/donate. You can also call us on 01236 449 774 or send donations to Missio Scotland, 4 Laird Street, Coatbridge, ML5 3LJ. Please keep us in your prayers. Thank you and God bless.